Okay, everybody, I have a couple things to show you, one of which comes direct hot off the press from CNN. Many of you may know already that actually there are a few people from CNN who watch my channel, which I think is interesting and should all give us pause, thinking that everybody at CNN thinks the same. And one of them sent me the internal memo that was released before the public knew that Chris Cuomo was going to be fired. So we all knew, if you've been paying attention to this story, that he was suspended indefinitely. That's originally what CNN was saying, and that related to the documents that were released through his brother, Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, the investigation into that sex scandal. And according to these documents, from what we've been hearing, it was showing that Chris was essentially running interference for his brother on the side, giving him advice, which CNN originally said they could understand why he was putting family first. I'm going to get into all this in a second, but just giving you the brief background if you're just waking up to this. Originally, CNN said, we understand why he was putting family first, but we started learning there was just a little bit too much stuff that was kind of borderline for us. So we're suspending him. And then whatever happened following that, they made the decision to get rid of him. So let me, without further ado, show you what was sent to me by a CNN staffer. You are all aware that earlier this week, we made the decision to suspend Chris Cuomo while we evaluated some new information that came to light regarding his involvement in his brother's defense. Now, I should just remind everybody, this is coming from Jeff Zucker, the CEO of CNN. Today, I let Chris know that we are ending his employment at CNN. It goes without saying that these decisions are not easy, and there are a lot of complex factors involved. But as always, it was important to me to be upfront with each of you. Below is the statement that we will be releasing publicly shortly. And then this was the statement that everybody heard about. Chris Cuomo was suspended earlier this week pending further evaluation of new information that came to light about his involvement with his brother's defense. We retained a respected law firm to conduct the review and have terminated him, effective immediately. While in the process of that review, additional information has come to light. Despite the termination, we will investigate as appropriate. I was told that when this was sent out to staff at CNN that everybody was shocked. Now, of course, the person who sent it to me doesn't know everybody at CNN, but the people that were around at the time this was released. And according to this person specifically, even people like Brian Stelter and Jim Acosta, who were participating in having to deliver the news about this to CNN's audience, that they were shocked that this happened. I think I'm a little surprised. I honestly thought they were going to pull a Brian Williams with this one and maybe bench him until after the holidays, hope everybody forgets, switch up his show a little. I don't know. Maybe put him lower in the block times. You know, he has a very popular primetime slot. Maybe put him at 2 p.m. or something for a while and then just hope that folks move on. I'm surprised, honestly. It tells me two things. Number one, either the stuff that was going to be coming out in these documents was so bad that CNN was thinking we can't have Fox get a hold of this before we take action. And that was another thing this person told me, that a lot of the people who were in a frenzy about delivering this news were talking about just how much Fox was going to eat this up. They were going to just love this and rub it in CNN's face. And that often a lot of the decisions at CNN are made in some way in relation to reaction to Fox News Channel or competing with Fox News Channel. And so that ping pong effect that we talk about a lot here happening even with this, wondering what is going to be aired about this on the competition, which is also interesting. That would be your concern when one of your employees is terminated for unethical behavior. Also, I heard that these producers specifically who were talking about how to deliver the news and who was going to do it and all this stuff, which I'm sure was also very highly manicured by Jeff Zucker himself, that they were thinking, well, we're real journalists, so we have to get this on air and we have to handle this appropriately and professionally because we're real journalists. Now, I question that. I'm not questioning that everybody at CNN is not a journalist or that nobody at CNN does journalism. I'm not saying that. My big takeaway from all this, and disagree if you'd like, let me know in the comment section. My big takeaway from all of this is that CNN, I think, did Chris Cuomo dirty. Okay. And I have no real sympathy for Chris Cuomo. Like, I have no excuses for him. I don't think what he did is right. And I do, however, think CNN helped create this guy. And it's interesting to me that for a long time, they allowed him, in my opinion, to publicly behave inappropriately, interviewing his brother on CNN about very important, highly significant events, i.e., COVID and New York, right? And a lot of the country, and not just the country, but the world, potentially influenced by what was happening in New York. That was happening, and Chris was allowed to interview Andrew, Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, and just joke about things and turn him into an Emmy award-winning governor. And then they find out that he's behaving inappropriately behind the scenes. That's shocking to them. I hope it's not shocking. I hope that's not shocking, because it's not shocking to me. Yeah, Clarissa says the CNN brothers were sacrificed. I'm going to say this much. I think CNN created this problem, or at least they helped create this problem. And then they're like, oh, dang, you know what? Chris Cuomo, he was acting inappropriately. Shocking. Well, we better get rid of him. This to me reminds me of if I gave my daughter a fudgesicle every morning for breakfast, and then she breaks into the freezer and gets a whole chocolate cake, and I find her with her face stuffed in the chocolate cake, and I'm like, what are you doing? You can't have chocolate cake. It's breakfast time. You can't take the whole chocolate cake out of the freezer. And I think that she's just somehow created this behavior on her own. Like, I had no part to play in her thinking that having chocolate at 6:30 in the morning was a good thing, that was allowable for breakfast. Meatbag says, I want chocolate cake. Who doesn't want chocolate cake right now? And I'm going to promote my wine in a second, because there's nothing that goes better with chocolate cake than AllisonWinePromo.com. But I'll wait for a second to do that. So my big takeaway with this whole story is that I think whatever we're not necessarily hearing about yet, but we probably will at some point in the future, was bad enough that CNN is thinking we can't have this guy around. And you know what? Perhaps that is a reflection of the continued decline in trust among viewers, people in the United States specifically too, related to corporate news, but definitely CNN. Their viewership is definitely down and trust is down. And so maybe they're at this point where they're thinking, sorry, this stuff's bad enough that someone else might get a hold of it. We got to get on top of this first. Say we took proactive action here, and we didn't wait and potentially come off looking negligent. But in my mind, they're already negligent because of the situation that preceded this. I, as a former journalist who worked in corporate news, was far more concerned about that period of time when CNN was putting these two brothers together during this extremely significant time where there needed to be some really tough questions asked that had long-standing implications for people's lives, not just in this country, I think, but around the world. I'm far more concerned that they thought that was ethical, and what Chris was doing publicly in his position at CNN, even than I am for this. Though I think, making calls to his media contacts and all the other stuff that's come out about what he was doing to help his brother Andrew out is wrong. I feel like, again, to go back to the chocolate cake analogy, if you give somebody a fudgesicle every day, you shouldn't be shocked when one day they take a huge flippin' cake out of the freezer and stuff their face with it, because you set the foundation for that person to think that that's appropriate behavior. And it just becomes insidious, and the person continues to act that way. That's just the way I look at it. So you promote this person, you turn this person into somebody who thinks that he's just buddy buddy with his powerful brother publicly. So why not call his contacts and run interference for him? Not why not give him PR advice for his situation when you're allowed to go on national television and essentially run interference for him publicly, because that's what was happening when we were watching those two together. He was running interference for Andrew Cuomo on CNN. So why are we surprised that he was doing it behind the scenes? This is why I'm sitting here completely unimpressed that all this is happening. And like I said, I think it's kind of weenie of CNN. Not that I don't think he should have been not fired. Simply because I think CNN should have maybe put in their statement, you know what? We're firing Chris because he played dirty on the side. Okay. But you know what? We made him this way, or at least we played a significant role, and we made a huge mistake by allowing him to interview his brother and publicly run interference for him on our channel. We're really sorry we did that. We had too much AllisonWinePromo.com while in the newsroom. We were making bad decisions under the influence. We shouldn't have done it. If they had said something like that, I'd be like, okay, maybe we're learning something here. All I see in this is we're fine. We're great. We did nothing wrong. We're real journalists, like that person who sent me this memo said, and he's just not. So he's out. And I just think that's kind of BS. I think that, again, I think the scene was set for something like this when you influence a person's behavior the way they did. And here's a story I've told before. When I was in one of my first television news stations, and my boss told me after I had driven 45 minutes away to a story and my interview canceled. I was the lead at 5, okay? The lead story at 5. And my boss says to me, "Well, you better find another lead story." And I reply, "Well, how am I supposed to do that? I'm 45 minutes from the station. I'm driving my own car. I have my own camera gear. Like, I'm not sitting in the passenger seat able to make phone calls. So how am I supposed to find a lead story at 5 o'clock in the next 2 hours, basically, right?" It was like the middle of the day, and I had to have it on television by 5, not just shot by 5, or I didn't have to just find it by 5. I had to find something basically within the next hour, shoot it within 30 minutes, try to digest what the heck the story was, make it all the way back to the station, log, write, voice, edit, do all this stuff by 5. That totally put me in a position to just find anything, anything, just find some news. So what if I get back to the station and I put something totally inaccurate on television? Okay. Yes, it's my fault for not saying to my boss, "You guys put me in a position to fail." On the other hand, my bosses did that, right? So I should have stuck up for myself and said, "This is ridiculous. You're going to force me to look for something and just make something up for the newscast. That's not journalism." And that okay, good. Sorry, something happened with my mic. Um, if I don't, if I go back to the station and the thing's a complete mess, it's not that it's not just my fault though, right? I mean, the managers who create a situation in a corporate newsroom that are not seeking the standards that they should be, and just pressuring people. This is exactly, I think, reflective of what happened with the people who were following the jurors, the jury vehicle in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. All right, you better get those people. You better figure out where they are. And we were talking about this the other night and thought they were trying to get to see where they're staying or whatever. I don't know if it was staying at a hotel or staying at their homes, or maybe there was a meetup where the jurors drive and then they get into the vehicle to go into the courthouse for privacy reasons. But for whatever it was, I believe that that producer for NBC who was looking for the Kyle Rittenhouse jurors, they were trying to find a location so that they could ambush them basically and ask them questions as soon as it was over. And the reason the person is doing that is because, well, A, they didn't push back and say, "This is unethical," which they should have done. Okay. but also because the bosses are saying, we're going to fire you if you don't do it. And so you can see how this all happened. So it's like, is CNN is CNN not negligible in this? Is none of this their fault that they create a situation where their anchor thinks that this behavior is acceptable? Or maybe he didn't. I mean, maybe he thought he was being slimy on the side and he just thought he would never get caught. Either way, how does he think he's not going to get caught or no one cares? It's because his ego has grown to to the size of somebody who thinks he's never going to be held accountable. Well, okay. Can we understand how that arose, how that situation arose, where Chris Cuomo might by chance think he would never be held accountable for unethical behavior? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because he has never been held accountable because he was interviewing his brother and running interference for him publicly on CNN. So let's check out Bob's super chat here. Hang on, I'm going to try to get back to it. You used Brian Williams as an adjective. Look into rather too. So many. Yeah, pull up Brian Williams. Listen, it's a mess. Okay, and it's too bad that at this point, there is damage done that will not ever be reversed, really, because of what happened here. And I'm not talking about here as in this situation of Chris getting fired. I'm talking about the months of CNN allowing Chris basically to do for his brother publicly on air what they're now saying they're firing him for. Please, if you work at CNN and you think I'm full of crap, and that's not what's happening, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how these things are that different. How are they that different? And so like I said, the fact that like you're hearing from people inside the newsroom saying that folks are freaked out trying to get this on air and deliver it to the viewers as if they're covering real journalism and they're going to really tell you what's going on, and they can be objective even about their own staff member being fired for this. I'm telling you, if that's how it worked for everybody all the time at CNN, we wouldn't have seen what we saw last year. And maybe we wouldn't have even seen this, because if Chris Cuomo, I believe, thought deep down that he would get caught, and that it was bad for him to just help his brother get through tough times, I don't think he would have ever seen what we saw with those guys doing the Cuomo brothers show. And like I said, propping the guy up basically to run for president and win an Emmy. So, that's all I got. I think I'm going to leave it there. I will take a few questions. Let me just look at what else we got going on here. Oh, I did want to say, I should probably do this before I go anywhere else. Okay. Don't forget that, Christmas is coming, and if you're a coffee drinker, you should definitely check out twinenginecoffee.com/Allison, twinenginecoffee.com/Allison. These are high altitude shade grown USDA certified organic Nicaraguan roasts. And I also love to promote the Caturra tea, which is right here. If you're a tea drinker, this stuff's awesome. It is a tea made out of the coffee fruits. I cold brew mine for 24 hours. Sometimes I forget and it goes 48 hours. And it's quite good. It has less caffeine than coffee, but honestly, I actually feel better drinking it than a cup of coffee. I love the coffee too. So I'm not trying to talk you out of the coffee, but I like the tea because I don't know. It just feels like a wake up without the shakes. If you're somebody who's affected by caffeine, which I am, I can't drink too much coffee or I get the shakes. Okay. Also, AllisonWinePromo.com is not working right now. Oh, you know what? And I should tell people sometimes, this sucks, but sometimes people are, yeah. Okay. Here we go. Sometimes we have issues for whatever reason. There's a firewall. So if you get that problem, just say, to continue to the site. Okay. I hate having to do that, but AllisonWinePromo.com, you get 50% off some of my favorite Malbecs from Argentina. These are also high altitude. Actually one of the wines comes from Argentina's oldest vineyard, which is pretty cool. And then this one in the middle, they call an extreme altitude vineyard. So my coffee and my wine is all high altitude. So go check it out. Again, great Christmas presents, and you help support my work. So Without further ado, I think I'm going to take some questions. I'll kill this stream on YouTube. If you're watching this on ROKFIN, thanks for doing that. It'll be up on my other platforms later. That's where I'm going to start taking questions from everybody. And I'll leave the YouTube stream up, obviously, but if you want to go have a little conversation post live stream, please do that. Again, final thoughts on CNN. I think we will probably see Chris Cuomo again. We may not see him with CNN, but I believe we have not seen the last of him. I just think that if this was really about the ethics of the situation and CNN was really concerned about ethics, I think we would have had very different decision making from CNN last year, which is why I just really don't buy that that CNN here is they've just got clean hands and whoops, we didn't know. We just didn't know that Chris was capable of doing this. So got to get rid of him because we got to have real journalists here. And so I think he was kind of sacrificing this one. I like I said, I think he should have been fired. I have no excuse for him really. I just think that CNN should have fired themselves. That's all I'm saying. I think they should fire themselves over this. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that they should really take some inventory about how all of this happened. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think if you can't see how CNN as the employer and as the managers who were allowing what I believe was unethical behavior long before this, then I just have a hard time. I just have a hard time accepting that that's really what this is all about. I do think it was probably just CNN saying we got to save face, right? And not worry too much about not I think he got a severance package though. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that Chris got a pretty good severance package. Cuomo equals gangsters. The whole family is an operation working together. They're not just random individuals helping one another par for the course. And at the level that they're at, this is where I have an issue. Okay. Listen, like I'm on YouTube. My husband comes on and talks about firearms sometimes and security. Okay. I've had my dad on talking about medicine. If either one of them was running a state's response, public health during a public health, situation with this kind of significance, I would hope that all of you would be like, Allison, maybe you're not the best person to interview those guys. Okay. So when you're two people who have a significant amount of influence, I think we should separate. Okay. I think we should separate and have somebody else. And I do kind of question if anybody at CNN really could do a fair job. I'm sure there's somebody, but I think even with just the influence that Chris probably has at CNN, I would almost wonder if anybody who would be nervous about getting on his bad side would do a fair job with that interview. I just don't know. Not that they shouldn't do it, but I think you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to take a few more questions over on ROKFIN. If you're watching this after the fact, check out the links in the description where you can see the rest of the live stream. And I'll see you guys next